Welcome everybody to GoLocal Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. Couple quick updates before we join our guest who's Skyping in from Italy. Numbers coming across on unemployment in Rhode Island. Again, obviously up today, about 6,000 from both unemployment insurance and TDI filings. There's a big story yesterday on GoLocal with our interview with DLT Director Jensen. Also updated, a little bit of good news. Honeywell is hiring literally hundreds in Rhode Island. Take a look at that job connection on site. There's an opportunity to put at least a small portion of the folks who have lost their jobs back to work. A little bit about our schedule today. After Rebecca Couto da Silva, we'll be talking to the head of the art club. Then we'll be jumping over to former Director of Health, Mike Fine, and then the governor's press conference at 1 p.m. So let's go to Bolzano, Italy. Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us again today.
Thank you for having me.
It's obviously globally a very difficult time for everyone. We've been locked down for a few weeks here in Rhode Island. The number of cases is growing, but but testing has not taken off very well here in Rhode Island. We'll have another piece on that later on today. Talk about what sort of the tenor is, how people are feeling in your small village up on the Italian-Austrian border.
Right, so it's, people are, I believe, really scared and waiting to see our peak because we've been locked down now for almost 2 weeks and we're supposed to be peaking yesterday and today. And for example, we saw the number of cases countrywide increasing at a decreasing rate until yesterday it spiked up again. And so I think everyone here has bated breath to see if these lockdown measures are working, are going to work. It's affected us in our town. I know that there were at least, there were a couple of helicopters and some cases in our town. So it's hitting home. It was always in the city below us. And it's really sad, and everyone just wants to see the hospitals be able to operate at capacity and see us turn the tide on this as an illness.
Describe Bolzano. 1,000 people, I think you said?
San Genesio, the village here, it's in the province of Bolzano. It's got about 1,000 people, and it's associated with 4 other villages for a total of about 3,000. And then the city of Bolzano, which is right below, you can see it from most people's apartments in this part of the village that I'm in. That has 116,000 people.
And what's environmentally, how's the weather been? Is that having any impact? There's this belief that we're going to see the virus diminish over the summer months. There's no science behind that. That's more of just hope. Is there any sense that maybe the weather is having an impact?
It's really hard to say. I think we'd have to look at places like Brazil and places that are warm now that for that information. Here, we just got hit with another cold snap. So it's hard to say, but it does seem like the numbers we're seeing now have more to do with what happened 2-3 weeks ago. So we're still pulling winter behind us. I'm not sure that anyone's really hopeful about spring, given the fact that this is, spreading in countries that have very hot weather right now.
In your town, how is sort of the mental outlook of folks right now? I mean, I know you're not having direct personal interaction with folks, but you're talking to people either online or across balconies. How do you think people are doing?
I think that it's everyone knows that there's this balance between, I really want to go out, and if I go out, I could endanger someone's life, right? So I think that people are hardy because they have that in mind. Italians have been through so much. They know that this too shall pass. And I think that people just accept, okay, I might not agree that this measure is strictly necessary, but I'm not sitting in the position of the prime minister, so I'm not going to second guess it, and I'm going to do my confinement, and I'm not going to complain. That's what I'm seeing.
How's your daughter doing with it? She's 10 years old. Last week when we checked in with you, you were contemplating calling the polizia because she wasn't doing her homework. She was reading too much Harry Potter.
I was the police.
Yes, is the direct military action still necessary?
No, she's doing great. And this is another sort of thing that happens with the confinement and with the overwhelming of the hospital. But she needs some dental care right now, and it's might be impossible to get it until May. Who knows? And that's a consequence that we don't necessarily think of, but that's difficult because not only are the systems geared towards rescuing the people who need life-saving work, but it's like, a dentist would be putting themselves right in the way of someone breathing, and we know that is the way that the COVID-19 transmits. So it's one of those ramifications that you might not necessarily think of at the beginning. You think, respirators, respirator parts,
right?
ICUs. No, it's everything. It's everything.
How is supplies standing up? Are the grocery stores full? I think you talked last week. The town was abuzz. It was going to be pizza night, and there was the opportunity to get pizza. Talk about that. Give us an idea. You're functionally a couple of weeks ahead of where we are in the U.S. How are supplies standing up?
The supply chain so far is just great. Agriculture is a necessary industry, so of course it's planting season, right? So we've got to think about the supply for the rest of the year. But I don't know if I mentioned this the first time. I was still allowed to go do my shopping in Bolzano at the time, but the only thing that was sold out was the German chocolate because it was steeply discounted. Here, it's everything. There is, things run out here because it's a village, but things aren't running out in a different way. The toilet paper is fully stocked. If something really delicious comes into the little store, it gets sold out, but it's not. That's normal.
Yeah. What's your thinking of U.S. has now surpassed Italy in the total number of cases. The death toll in Italy has now surpassed 8,000. In the U.S., I think we're at 12 or 1,300. We have a long way to go. Hotspots are picking up in places like New York City, Detroit, Chicago, New Orleans. What's your advice for what you've been through in communicating to us back in the U.S.?
That it's better to stay away, to practice that physical distancing. I call it physical distancing because socially we can connect with each other in other ways. Practice that physical distancing and know that this will pass. I believe that, I got a message from my mortgage holder this morning saying, okay, 3 months. Let's not freak out about these 3 months. If my mortgage holder in Texas emailed me, it seems to be something that is going to be most mortgage holders. And of course, I haven't looked into that, but, know that that this is such a crisis that there will need to be structures in place, and don't despair. Roll with it, and keep your thoughts positive. If it gets hard, get that gulp of fresh air. Sorry, I just looked out the window. Get that gulp of fresh air. Practice breathing or whatever makes you relax. Distractions. Don't judge yourself if you spend the day watching TV. Okay, that's coping, Everyone is different. You spend the day doing squats, you're going to have great legs. That's how you cope. And every person is different. And every person, we do this our own way. Let's all do it safely.
It is a little bit of amazing, especially for a little different in Italy. I've been to Italy numerous times. It's a much slower pace. In the US, we're always screaming, crying for any amount of time away from the bustle of life and a little more leisure time. And here we are, forced upon us with significant opportunity to take on some other things. It's forced, it's in a period of both healthcare and business chaos, but it is an opportunity, as you say, to take a moment, relax, read that book, watch that show to try and decompress from the pressures and the realities of what is going on.
Exactly. And just accept that you deal how you deal, and, don't think, okay, I need to be that person who got rid of every bit of dust. Okay, no, maybe I'll have more dust at the end, but that's me.
We will check in with you not only for the statistics, but a dust count on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Rebecca Couto da Silva, thank you so much once again for joining us on GoLocal Live. We really appreciate it. I think people really love the perspective of checking in with what's going on in Italy. So many Rhode Islanders are either of Italian American descent or have been there and visited there. So I want to thank you.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to thank everybody. We're going to be back in just a little bit with the head of the art club. Then at 12 noon, Dr. Fine with some very interesting information from a colleague of his in one of the New York City hospitals. And then at 1 o'clock will be Governor Raimondo. Thanks everybody for tuning in.